Welcome to the Afterlife podcast. This is your host, Pooja Chilakuri. My guest today is Kat Sanders. I had the joy of meeting Kat in person. We were at the same conference for the International Association of Near-Death Studies. And since then, which was this past summer, I've been meaning to bring Kat on and have her share her story. She is a spiritual medium and a certified hypnotherapist. But I know there's so much more to us, right, than whatever the work that we do. And I'm very excited to bring Kat on today to share with us, some of the aspects of her near-death experience back in 2010, and also how she can help us connect to our loved ones across the veil. Welcome to the show, Pat.
Thank you, Pooja. I'm excited to see you again and excited to be here.
Thank you. And like I said, Kat, I can't wait to just dive into your stories. Take it away, share with us whatever you want, about you and about your journey.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Well, it did start back in 2010. It was kind of a typical day in April. I was working hard and doing my thing. It was, a beautiful day in April. And I started with a big presentation. I presented to a group of, I don't know, a few hundred people. And then I had a lunch appointment and everything was going great. And all of a sudden, I came home to kind of freshen up for another meeting. And out of the blue, I felt like someone had stabbed me in the head with a knife. And it scared me because it was just so intense. And it took about, I don't know, 15 to 20 seconds before all of a sudden I was telling my legs to move me to the bed so I could sit down, but my legs weren't doing what they were told. And everything kind of went to black. It was almost like if you remember the old cameras that kind of had a little circle and it just kind of faded to black. My sound, my vision, everything went numb. Everything just kind of faded to black at that point. And I collapsed. I was very fortunate that my husband was home at the time. And apparently I said to him, I don't remember a lot of what I said at that point, but he told me, I said, my head hurts really bad and I'm scared. So he came running in and he grabbed me just before I hit the floor. So I didn't hit as hard as I could have. But at that point, I was out and I didn't wake up for about 6 weeks. But what I remember at that point was it was black for a little bit. And then the camera lens kind of opened again in a circular like fashion. It opened and I was in a very, very different place. And it was beautiful. And when I say beautiful, that's not the word to describe it because there is no word that can describe the place I was at. And I knew immediately, for me, this was heaven. The colors were different. The feeling was, well, indescribable. It was unconditional love. It was a warm blanket of love wrapped around me. It was peaceful. I think the best word to describe it was home. It was like a place, a home that I could never have understood before. And I was connected to absolutely everything. And when I say everything, I mean the trees that I saw, the grass, the sky, everyone who was still alive, and everyone who had already passed. God, Source, Buddha. It didn't matter what you called, God. It didn't matter who had passed, whether I knew them or not. I was completely connected with the universe. And it was the most incredible and beautiful feeling I had never experienced before. And this is a place I call the in-between now. And that's not a clinical or real term. It's just my expression to say this is where you go before you're all the way gone,
Mhm.
because I believe it's a customized place that is perfect for each of us. So when I got to this place and I felt this experience, on my right was a throne, and on that throne was a figure. In my experience, this was God.
Mhm.
There was a tree, there was grass. I heard singing like angels. I felt animals there. And again, still felt my husband, my son, the people that I loved that were alive. And I felt those that had departed that I loved. And in this place, I had a download of information. I believe this came from God. It was like they took a thumb drive and just plugged it into my brain and just gave me information. Now, for me, it was a tiny bit of a life review. It was some things that I needed to know. And for me, I had been raised in a very, I'll say, kind of a Baptist religion.
Mhm.
And I always felt as though certain religions, some were just kind of revered, and some, I was taught, were doing it all wrong.
Mhm.
So for me, what I was learning was that um, I always thought, say, the Jewish people, they were the chosen ones. So they were kind of at the front of the line. And
Mhm.
then those people that were without sin and believed in God and Jesus, they would be next.
Mhm.
And then the other religions, you know, for me as Baptist, gee, if you're Catholic, well, you're kind of doing it a little bit wrong, but you're still good because you believe, right?
Mhm. I get it. Yes.
Almost. You're kind of next in line. And then the other religions, well, gee, if you're Mormon, well, that's not really the right way to do it, is the way I was raised. Well, they're next in line. And then it would go on and on. And then there are those people who are sinners and people who have the mental illness and they don't really believe right. And the line went on. And so I had this line of people in my mind that God was showing me, that see this line of people that you have, and all these sinners and these people that are awful and doing these terrible things that don't believe. They're down at the back of the line. And he took that line from me and he scrambled it all up. He scrambled it and he put them all in this big group. And he put his arms around them. He said, these are my children. These are all my children, even the least of them. These are all my children, and I love them unconditionally. And they all are welcome with me. And it was this beautiful revelation. And he says, I don't judge them and tell them they can't come here. I love them all. He says, and you need to love them. He says, look into their eyes, every one of them. You look into their eyes. You don't judge. It's not your place to judge. You don't judge these people. You love them all. You look beyond what they look like. You look beyond what they've been taught in this world, and you see their beautiful souls. Their souls are beautiful. And I learned this, and I just had this revelation of, wow, we are souls that come down to this earth, and then we're damaged by everything we see and we feel and we experience, because you don't know what kind of life you're going to have and what you experience once you're here. And I learned this just in just a flash of a second, but I learned this. And then I suddenly found myself back, in this park, and I saw this white path in front of me, and it was so bright, like hurt your eyes bright, but beautiful and loving. And I just realized, I walked down this path, I'm there forever. And I wanted that so much. I can be with this God that loves so intensely. and these angels that are singing and these animals, and I can be connected. So I immediately started moving forward in that light. And my father, my late father, immediately showed up in front of me and stopped my progress. And he looked good. He looked so good and young. And when he died, he was in very, very bad shape. He had had a horrible disease that had just ravaged his body. But when he was in front of me in this place, he was probably 25, which is younger than when I was even born. But I knew immediately who it was. And he had his award-winning smile. And he stopped me. And he just said, honey, you have more to do. You need to go back. And I wasn't disappointed. I wasn't sad, even though you would think, because I wanted to be there so much. You would think I would be so disappointed and I would protest. But I knew if my father and this God were saying that I needed to go back, that that was what was best for me. So and I took a deep breath and I agreed to it. I said, okay. You know, I had learned some other things. I'm not going into all the details with you because I could take your show for 3 weeks and go into some of the other things I learned about where you go and the pods of people, your family that you go back to once you do go home. But I agreed to go back. And almost instantaneously, when I accepted my fate of going back into my body, I felt this heaviness, this huge heaviness. Everything went back to black, and this heaviness just took me. It felt like a downward. I don't know that it was downward, but it felt downward. It was just such a heaviness. And I felt almost like a thud back into my body. And it was heavy and it was hard. And it was a while before I woke up. It didn't feel all that long, but I knew that it was somehow. And again, I was in a coma. What had happened was it's called an AVM, an arteriovenous malformation, that I was completely unaware that I had. I had 5 veins where I had the arteries and veins, but it was a birth defect, so I never had the capillaries. So and I was 49 when it happened, after all those years of the oxygenated blood going into those veins, they all just burst at once. So it was like the equivalent of 5 aneurysms at once that just burst. And there was so much blood that, I mean, it literally kind of moved my brain around, almost pulled it right off the brainstem. It was extremely serious. The doctors didn't think there was any chance of my living. There were several, they called them coincidences, but I don't believe in coincidences because I know now when it's your time to go, you go, regardless of the circumstances. And when it's not your time to go, things are going to happen that, make sure that you don't go. I was sent to Kaiser Hospital, and they found me. I flatlined in the ambulance on the way, which is when I believe my near-death experience had happened. They did CPR on me on the way. I don't know why they didn't have paddles, but whatever. They revived me at the hospital, and they didn't have brain surgeons to take care of it, so they sent me to county. County had a gang fight, so they were full up. And they had brain surgeons there because somebody had been shot in the head. And so the brain surgeons had already been transported there, but they were busy. So I sat in the hallway in a coma for hours. And, but just before they did the brain surgery on the young guy, MS-13, remember, whatever, that had been shot in the head, just before they started to operate, he passed. So there were the surgeons all scrubbed and nobody to operate on. So they say, "Oh, what's that girl in, laying in the, there she is, laying in the hallway there." So they rushed me in. And again, the doctor said, "Well, she's got a 10% chance of living through the surgery and a kind of a trillion to one of ever being really functional." But my husband said, "Please try." So they did surgery anyway, because, well, they were there anyway. And they took out a golf ball sized part of my brain to get to where the aneurysms were. They plugged them up and then said, "Well, we'll see how she turns out." And, again, I woke up from the coma, which also surprised them. And then it was kind of touch and go whether I'd make it through. But here I am, because apparently I have more to do.
Oh my goodness, Kat. I'm listening to you and I'm mentally making a note of like the million miracles that you just described. I mean, it's just amazing to me. Not even, so your near-death experience, that part is amazing and very beautiful. But, when I'm trying to wrap my head around that, it's hard for me to even imagine. But when you're describing your experiences in the hospital, now that's something my human mind can relate with, right? And I'm and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, it's just such a beautiful testament to all the miracles you experienced. And I'm actually not done digging down into your near-death story because I don't care if you take 3 weeks or 3 years, but I'm actually dying to know what other experiences? I mean, even if it's just one or two that you don't mind sharing.
Well, one thing I did learn again is that, um, it was made very clear to me that when it is your time, it is your time. Whether you're 2 years old, or 110 years old, um, you have a day that you are going to die,
Mhm.
and nothing is going to stop you from dying on that day. And even if a person kills themselves, if they're successful in doing so, it's because they were going to die on that day. And if they try and don't succeed, it's because they weren't going to on that day. This is what I was told, because it is, it is meant to be when you die.
Mhm.
Um, and a caveat to that, I learned that, well, they may not have been scheduled to die on that day, but very close to it.
Close to
That's
it.
why it's kind
Yeah.
of allowed.
Yeah.
And so it's, it, again, it was kind of that part of that download. Do you see your pets again? Um, yeah, your pets are part of this universe that plug in. And even as a medium now, I've actually had pets come to me, which was a huge surprise. But again, part of that download was, yeah, pets have, uh, these souls too. They're part of,
Mhm.
this whole universe. Trees. I don't trim my trees or my bushes now before saying, pull back, and then I trim them. And it's not that you just don't ever trim your trees because it's going to hurt them. You can't do that. But being connected in the way that I was, I now see that every living thing is so connected, and energy is such a thing. This is the other thing I learned that was so critical to me. Energy is very, very real. We are all energy, which is why our souls do not die. But if I look at you, Pluto, and say, I love you, I care for you, I wish you well, I am sending positive energy through me from the light and love in the universe and sending it to you. Now, when I do that, it is very good for you.
Mhm.
It's also very good for me.
Mhm.
because it's coming through me and it's helpful.
Mhm.
If I were to do something the opposite of that, if I were to send negative energy, let's say somebody cuts me off on the freeway, which is a
Mhm.
problem I have that I'm working on, you know, you son of a gun, why did you do that? You know, curses on you, whatever. Um, that not only is a negative energy that I'm sending to that person, and it's actually harming that person,
Mhm.
it's also harming me and my health to be doing that
Mhm.
because energy is a very real thing.
Mhm.
And it's really hard for us to just instantaneously say, I'm never going to do anything negative or say anything negative again.
Mhm.
But it is a real thing. This is why the Reiki healers and, you know, these people that are doing the healing through their hands, through their minds,
Mhm.
it really does help. It really does work
Mhm.
because energy is a beautiful thing. Going out in nature, being around the trees, the birds, all of that is very, very good for you.
Mhm.
The other thing I've learned about is vibrations.
Mhm.
I only got a taste of it on the other side, but I've been working with it and understanding it. And music is a vibration. So listening to music is a good thing.
Mhm.
But when you expose yourself to a lot of negative vibrations, and when I say negative vibrations, music can be a bad thing if you're listening to the wrong
Mhm.
vibrations. The different tones of voices.
Mhm.
You're listening to a lot of really negative music, negative sounds, negative words, it's harming you. If you're listening to um, some of the positive, happy, slow jazz, you know, some of that is actually good for you. Now, here's an interesting point. If you research cats and the sound of their purring, you'll find that um, when a cat purrs, the sound of their purring actually heals their body.
Mhm.
That particular frequency of sound can actually send a sound wave through their body that heals inflammation and literally their bones. So it's good to have a purring cat around. And I'm not advocating well, yes, I am. Everybody should have a cat.
I'm a cat. All right.
But again, that vibration is very, very good for people. So the vibrations we have around us are important. So when people sit around and listen to news all the time, especially negative news, and I say this as a former news person, okay, that was my background.
Oh, goodness.
It is sensationalized, trust me. I was very good at sensationalizing it. I was very good at, you know, the world is coming to an end. Tune in at 11. I was very good at writing that stuff until I finally realized, you know, I don't think I like doing this and got out of the business. But it's really not, and I'm not saying don't know what's going on, but do be careful about putting yourself in too much into that. Even listening to cop shows where they're killing each other. I love cop shows, but you know, watch a little bit of it, but don't inundate yourself with it. I kind of hate to see the rivalry right now between Republicans and Democrats and this fear mongering that they're pushing on the news. And I'm not saying one side is better than the other. I try and stay completely out of it when I can, but it's creating this rift where people friends don't like each other anymore right now because they're on the wrong side and whatever. And it's like it's very unhealthy for our bodies. And so best if we can try to stay away from it at least for a while during the day and just kind of get out there, meditate a little bit, stay away from the vibration of it.
Kind of sounds like an energy fasting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like
It
a
was,
detox.
yeah,
Yes,
it was totally
absolutely.
wrong.
Thank you for sharing.
Hallmark channel or something. I don't know, whatever. Listen to podcasts.
Yes, definitely, right? Listen to uplifting podcasts.
Yeah. Go to a meditation group.
Yeah.
Meet happy people. I went to a
Hmm.
speakeasy last night. So much fun. Listening to old music, live
Hmm.
music. It's so much.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
something. Do something happy. Keep
Yeah.
that good vibration.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm learning is that joy is a very important vibration to engage with.
Yes,
Really. It's like medicine for the soul, isn't it?
it
So,
really is.
yeah, and you're sharing so much of that, all the wisdom and experiences that you've had, Kat. And I definitely don't want to make light of the physical hardships that led you there. Or I'm pretty sure that even like recovering, though you had this beautiful near-death experience, that's one of the things when I'm interviewing people and I listen to the trauma or the sickness that led to the near death, right? And then when I listen to the near death experience, the other stuff just poof vanishes for me. But I know that for those who are living it, you probably had to do a lot of work to heal and recover from for your physical health and then integrating that spiritual experience that you had into your reality. What, how does that even work? I don't even know what I would do if I had Andy like that.
It was a difficult recovery. I mean, I had to learn to walk again. I
Mhm,
had to learn to, you know, how do you reach out and touch something? My depth perception was off. I had a lot of recovery.
mhm,
Um, and financially, I had to recover because when this happened, um, I won't go into my terrible employer before that, but I was paying in for Cobra and the employer wasn't paying in. Um, Kind of a long story, but just suffice it to say, for 2 weeks, I had no coverage, and that's when this happened. So I lost all my retirement savings. I lost hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. I lost my house. I lost everything. You know what? I am so happy that this happened to me, even with that, because I was living in a $1 million house. I was living my Mercedes, yeah. I am still so happy that this happened to me because I am such a happy person. I'm no longer the workaholic I was before. And I have such a view of life of what it really means.
mhm,
I mean, we are these beautiful souls that come down to live in these bodies to experience what it is to be in on earth living a life.
mhm,
And then eventually we go back to being these beautiful souls and we take with us all those experiences. And if we have this carefree, easy life, we don't learn much.
mhm,
We only learn if we have these traumas, these hardships, these, experiences that are more difficult.
mhm,
Um, Otherwise, what are we going to learn?
mhm,
Right? We have to experience love and difficulty and trauma, or we kind of go back going, well, that was easy, you know. So I'm just very grateful that this happened to me and that I got to come back so that I had to do all the recovery and learning to walk and pushing through. And I can say, you know what? I really went through something and I learned a lot from it. And I hope that I can help somebody else to understand the most important thing is do not fear death.
mhm,
Because even though what I went through was super painful, God took away my pain.
mhm,
That's what a coma is called.
mhm,
That's what passing out is. God takes that pain away.
mhm,
And then he puts us in this incredibly great place and lets us know you're about to go home. and it's going to be phenomenal. But you're still connected with those that have passed and those that are still alive.
Mhm.
Then he gave me this gift of mediumship, which was weird when I first started getting it because I was like, what's this? So that I could show other people that, look, you know what? Your father who's passed, he's not gone.
Mhm.
He's still here.
Mhm. That's an incredible gift, Kat. And that was actually going to be my next question, is because I've heard a lot of people that have had near-death experiences that have left their bodies when they come back. They talk about their abilities, their intuitions goes up, their psychic abilities. So that was my question. That was going to be my question. Did you come back with this, heightened sense of connectedness to the other side? And how did you first discover that those people had already passed away and they were trying to connect?
It was actually difficult at first because, again, having had brain surgery, I had some very strange things going on with my recovery. I remember the day my husband treated me to a grilled cheese sandwich and tomato soup, one of my favorite comfort foods. And I was so upset because it didn't taste like that, because my brain was playing tricks on me. I had all kinds of things going on with my recovering brain,
Mhm.
and I was crying. I was so upset, and then I felt like I had like radio waves coming in. It's like, what is this? So I had all these things happening to me that were brain damage issues. So when all of a sudden I started seeing things, that people's homes and memories of meeting people and playing with children, and I had no idea what they were. And then I started feeling like I needed to write something, but it was, no, use your left hand, and I'm not left-handed. And so I started scribbling on a page, and all of a sudden names or words would come out, and I thought, what is that? Because I never had anything like this before. And at first, the word Naomi was coming out like 3 or 4 times. The word Naomi, the name Naomi. Well, who's that? I don't know anybody with that name. So I started having these things, and I tried to kind of reach out for help, but I didn't know who to go to. And at a wedding that I was at, a lady came up to me and she said, if the spirits are upsetting you, you can tell them no, don't come to me. And I said, what spirits? And she said, just know if you're not ready for them, then just tell them no. And then she left, and it was a big wedding. I couldn't find her again. I thought, spirits. And that was the first that I had heard about. So I thought, maybe that's who's talking to me. And so it took years before I started realizing. And then I finally just prayed about it and just said, okay, help me through this. I started looking at different things online and researching through YouTube. And I finally took a course on mediumship. Thank goodness I did that. And it started to click, and I started realizing, and then I understood that I have spirit guides.
Mm-hmm.
That was the kicker. Those are like God's little helpers that are just working with you, and they help you through all this. And now I work with my spirit guides. They help me through everything. I've kind of made these little deals with them. It's like, okay, so help me out here. Who is this person that's trying to talk to me? And who are they? And so they're like my angels. They're not angels, but they are my saviors because they translate for me what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I now teach people. My favorite thing to do is teach other people how to work with their spirit guides and connect with the other side
Mm-hmm.
in a non, you know, disorganized, crazy way. And it works wonderfully. I start by teaching people how to get a yes and no answer that's clear and concise from their spirit guides. Because a lot of times we pray to God, And we wish that we had a chalkboard that he could write on to give us an answer.
Yeah.
So I teach them how to get a yes and no answer from their spirit guides. And that starts off going, oh, they're really there. And they really do answer us. So this is how we start. And now I can look at someone like I can look at you and I can see where the spirits are by looking at your face and seeing where the lights are. And that tells me female or male, grandparents to child. And that starts the conversation. And that's how I do my mediumship. It's just my way because I created it with the help of my spirit guides. So again, when I teach people intuition and they want to learn to communicate with spirits, this is how I do it. So spirit guides, we all have them. They're only ours. They're given to us before we're born, assigned to us, and they're just wonderful to work with.
There is so much hope in everything that you've shared, Kat. I've always said that the biggest burden we carry is, when a loved one passes, like that just feels awful and it can feel so awful for such a long time. And to just know that there are, spirit guides, there are people like you that can help us, to connect. I think that's got to be so important for like a healing or some kind of a closure to help us move on. Because that's so hard.
Oh,
Grief is hard.
it is. And if someone, and there are good mediums all over,
Yeah.
and if someone can say to you, yeah, I had a young lady come to me, and she was so sad over the loss of her father.
Mm.
And her father came in, and it was the funniest thing because what I was seeing was a hot dog and a casserole dish. And I said, well, I'm just going to tell you what I'm seeing. And so I told her, I said, I'm seeing a hot dog and I'm seeing a casserole dish. And she just started crying. She said, when I was 8 years old, I used to make him a hot dog casserole. And who would have thought?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and that makes sense. I had no idea why I would see a hot dog in a casserole.
Yeah.
And she said, then I know he really is there because he would show you that. That was our special thing because he died when she was 10. So there wasn't a lot that he could have shown, but that was the one thing that would really, and she says, I knew if you were real, you would show me something about that. And I went,
Mm.
okay, well, you obviously told your dad that because that's what he's showing me. And she said, okay, then he's okay.
Yeah.
Yes, he is okay. He's doing great and he's there with you. And now you know he's there.
Mhm.
So they want to tell us that they're fine.
Yeah.
They really want to.
Yeah.
And again, there's so many great mediums out there.
Yeah.
And all we need to do is just maybe trust one to do that.
I,
And
I,
uh, and
that's
and again, my favorite thing is you don't really need a medium. You just need to learn how to do it.
how to do it.
I'd
Yes.
love to train everybody on it.
Right.
That's the best way.
I think so, Kat. I think so. But all of us can need a little hand holding or someone to carry us when we're grieving, right? Um,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for those who do that work and are so invested in it because that's one of the reasons I started the Afterlife channel was because other than my curiosity for near-death experiences, it's also led me to interview people that work with grief. Because I just think that's such a big burden for all of us. When that happens, life gets interrupted in a
It
big way.
does. It's
Yeah.
hard to not have that physical person.
Hmm. Yep.
And I've sung at a lot of funerals,
Hmm.
and people say, "How can you do that? Don't you get choked up?" And it's like,
Hmm.
actually, I'm a little jealous that they're in that wonderful place. So I'm happy for them. I try not to smile because other people think that there's something wrong with me.
Yeah, of course. But you mentioned a very important word, trust. When you said there's so many good ones out there and we could trust one, but a lot of us have been conditioned not to,
Yeah,
and religion has also played a role in that. For me personally, I know the denomination that I was part of, they did not trust anything that was supernatural. They did not encourage any of these experiences, right? So
right.
my brain was conditioned to doubt it, to
Yeah,
shut it down. So
yeah.
that's what I'm asking. Like, do you feel like any part of your religious upbringing did you ever feel like, is this real? Do I need to shut it down? Is this wrong? Did you
Yeah.
ever go through that?
Since my near-death experience, my brain is completely rewired. I have been very disappointed in a lot of the organized religions because they don't accept me anymore. And I was extremely involved. I was a Sunday school teacher. I sang on the praise team. I was very, very involved in church. And now I am not accepted because I am a medium.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, but I met God face to face.
Right?
And I love God so much.
Yep.
And I just want to give the good message that, um, you should love God and not be afraid because it's a beautiful thing. And
Yeah.
they don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's sad. It's
Yeah.
very sad.
Yeah.
Um, but they want to hear, you better darn well, give to our church. And if you don't do the right thing, you're going to go to hell. And I'm sorry, that's not the right message.
Yeah.
So I have a little bit of an opposition towards
Yeah.
organized religion in the
Yeah.
most part, even though I am the biggest proponent of you should love God because he is so awesome and
Yeah.
incredible and loving.
Hmm.
So it's really sad, but no, I don't have any concerns about my religious upbringing and that because my brain is completely rewired after what I've been through.
Thank you
I
for
I
sharing.
still have even my family. So a couple of people, well, most of my family thinks that oh well, it probably is just brain damage.
Mm.
So, but I love my family, and I'm sad that they just don't understand.
Thank you. Thank you for
Someday they
sharing that.
will. Someday we all will.
Yeah, someday we all will.
Yeah,
No
I know
one's
what.
gonna escape that, right? We're all gonna be there one day.
100% of us will pass.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just, I will say that if you believe that you're going to a good place, you're going to a good place immediately. There have been people who's in between who, immediately as they're going to home, their initial experience isn't as positive as mine. And that's because of their fear.
Yeah.
And I really wish I could just get to everybody and
Mhm.
say, do not worry because you're going to the good place. And that doesn't mean that you should just go out and rob and steal and rape
Yeah.
and pillage, because you will have a life review and you are going to have some regrets because once you see how fabulous it is, you're going to say, wow, I wish I didn't do that
Hmm.
because I'm going to have to come back and try again and get it right the next time. But you're not gonna, you're not gonna go to hell.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Not roast in a fire.
roast in the fire.
Yeah.
But you are gonna have some regrets.
Hmm. Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, I really appreciate you sharing that, Kat, because I had some spiritually transformative experiences which were not accepted by the church that I was at. I ended up leaving, but it was just, the irony doesn't escape me ever. Having that you had an NDE, I didn't have one, but I did have a spiritual encounter with Jesus. It was Jesus, but they still didn't like it because it wasn't the way that I was being taught. It was different. And I always think, the whole point of religion is to help us connect to God. And once you have that connection, it's like, do I really need certain tools anymore? Or can I modify it? Can I upgrade those tools to upgrade my, because my experience is now upgraded, right? So I get it. And I really appreciate you sharing, Kat. So
and when I
thank
say
you.
I saw God, it doesn't mean that it wasn't because he made it very clear to me that he was God, Buddha, Jesus, that he was the example of all.
Yes. And I get that when I hear you say, or to me now, the word God is like, it's so difficult to describe, right?
Yeah,
It's how do you describe something that doesn't have form and that's everything? It's like
yeah,
this so all-encompassing. So I get it. Yeah.
yeah,
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 thank you. And then thank you for reminding us, no judgment and about the unconditional love. And I just also want to ask you one more quick question, and that is about, I read on your website that you're also a certified hypnotherapist
yes.
and that you can help with like past life regression type things. And my question is very basic because I'm still trying to educate myself. Why would someone need to do that?
Oh, it's actually very fascinating. And before my near death experience, I would never have believed in more than one life. So it was really pretty fascinating for me to understand that we do come back again and again and
Mhm,
again because we got to get it right, because our goal is to achieve understanding all the ins and outs and achieving love. It
mhm,
is all about love. So for those of us who are doing it all wrong and doing the bad things, you are really going to have to come back and have some pretty tough times trying to learn and get it. But if you're going back, you are trying to find out why, first of all, you might have certain fears.
mhm,
Um, my life up until a certain point, I had a terrible fear of being buried alive.
well,
Why would I have a fear of being buried alive?
mhm,
I did past life regression, a couple of them, and actually learned that in a previous life, back say 500 years ago, I actually was buried alive, and not in a nefarious way like you would think. I actually, as a young woman in this lifetime, had a terrible flu, whatever, and had what they thought died, but I wasn't completely dead. And 500 years ago, who knew how to tell? So they lovingly buried me, not very deep. And I woke up buried, but still alive, and scratched my way out of the grave. And I have this terrible memory that seems to have gone
mhm,
with my lives,
mhm,
and just stuck with me, this memory that's still there, that I had these dreams of literally waking up barely able to breathe, digging myself out of this grave.
mhm,
Once I had that past life regression, I remembered. I also have this desire to play with herbs and make these potions and
mhm,
teas and all of that. One of my past lives, I was a Chickasaw um, healer, and I used poultices and herbs and whatever. And once I found that out, I thought, no wonder I love to play
yeah,
with herbs. And so it is actually fascinating to go back to these lives. You can also start to see a pattern,
mhm,
find out the type of person that you are. There are actually soul types.
mhm,
My soul type is I am a server. I
mhm,
like to take care of people.
mhm,
That's probably the largest group of personality types.
mhm,
Um, but I can see a pattern that I'm trying to apparently get rid of, and that is people take advantage of people too often.
mhm,
And so that's something I'm trying to achieve. So there are certain patterns you can see, certain things that I'm repeating in different lifetimes that I
mhm,
need to overcome. It's like, okay, I see that I'm doing this. I need to stop that so that I don't have to keep repeating it in other lives.
mhm,
So there's different things that are fun to see
Mhm.
when going back into past lives.
Got it. Got it, Kat. Thank you. Thank you so much. I could go on and on, but I time is coming to a close, but I don't want to leave without asking you how we can stay connected. So I have your website, which I will put in the show notes. And do you have any other way that people could find you and connect with you?
Yeah, my website's not really great yet. I'm not really good with technology, but that may be the best way for now.
Okay.
Um, yeah, eventually I'll get out there social
Yes.
media wise. But
And when you do, please get in touch with me and I will update my show notes so people can find you because I really think that what you're doing is so important. So would love for folks to find you, Kat. And I
yeah,
hope I get to see you at another conference as well.
I hope we can reconnect.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for coming on and thank you for sharing.
You bet. It's been fun. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.